what's said today. We appreciate you all coming in on the first meeting, first up to bat, right? And if you'll please introduce yourselves and for the record, and then proceed with your presentation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tony Hatton. I'm Commissioner of the Commonwealth's Department for Environmental Protection.
Thank you. I'm Kenya Stump, Director of Kentucky's Office of Energy Policy.
And I'm Corey Troutman, Director for Division of Financial Management.
All right, sir, we'll go ahead and get started. First, we appreciate the opportunity to come over and talk with you all. And
is your microphone on? I'm sorry. Is the microphone on?
Yeah, let me see.
Make sure it's real green. Pull it closer to you if you don't care.
That green light looked green, but now it looks green.
That's real green. All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. My apologies. We are pleased to have an opportunity to come over and testify before the committee and seek to respond to some of the questions that we received last week about the state-owned dam repair program. So, let me see here. KRS 151 assigns a handful of duties to the cabinet when it comes to state-owned dams. One of the things that it does is it defines what a dam actually is. And in order for it to be a dam under Kentucky law, the water barrier has to be at least 25 feet tall, or it has to impound 50 acre-feet of water, an acre-foot being that in any given foot within an acre, you have over a foot of water. Every square foot, you have over a foot of water. So that's how a dam is defined in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Also, KRS 151 sort of tasks the agency with that we may take actions where needed to repair a dam, maintain a dam, decommission a dam, particularly if it may cause loss of property or loss of life. And we're also required under Kentucky law to do compliance inspections on all of the 975 dams that are in the Commonwealth of Kentucky that meet that definition. Of those 975 dams, 76 of them are state-owned dams, and they may have been impounded for recreational purposes, as a source of drinking water, those types of purposes by which they were constructed. 25 of those state-owned dams are considered high hazard, 17 are considered significant hazard, and 34 are classified as low hazard. And I think it's really important to point out that the basis for which a dam is classified is not so much the condition of the dam by itself or the size of the dam, but it's whether or not if a failure of the dam may cause loss of life or significant property damage. So a high hazard dam is a dam that could be considered to cause loss of life and significant property damage, whereas a significant hazard may cause property damage, but is not likely to result in loss of life. And a low hazard dam is one that we really wouldn't expect either of those to be the case. So that's how dams are defined in Kentucky. That's how they're classified. And so when it comes to determining when we propose to take an action on a dam, we have some screening criteria that you can see here, Mr. Chairman. And once that classification is made, we go through these screening criteria. And there's some overlap in them for sure, but I think probably the biggest one of all on the dam hazard classification is inundation. What would be the extent of inundation if you had a failure of a dam? And so we've worked with Mississippi State University where we've done inundation mapping on nearly all the dams in Kentucky, whether they're state-owned or private-owned. And they use a two-dimensional flow model, which isn't 100% accurate, but it's close enough to project what areas might get inundated if you did have a catastrophic failure of a dam, which we all hope would never happen. So a high hazard dam is one where you may have loss of life if you have a failure. And that's often the case if you have folks who live below a dam and find themselves in the inundation zone if that dam were to fail. We also look at the basic condition of the dam. We do an engineering assessment, and we look at observations, what we call risk. In other words, is there something specific about a dam that's problematic? Does it have seeps in the toe? Is it developing cracks? Do we have a leak around the spillway? Or does it even have an auxiliary spillway? Does it have enough hydraulic capacity to hold back the water? If you get a bunch of extra water or rainfall in a watershed, we look at all those things. We look at the compliance status as well. It's either good or fair or unsatisfactory. And so those are the screening criteria. And they're somewhat subjective, but not completely subjective. And a lot of it's, best engineering practice to determine which dams we say, okay, we need to take some action on this one moving forward. And that's how we base our budget requests and our 6-year capital plan and biennial budget requests. So I'll go through these couple tables and sort of unpack them a little bit. One of the questions that you all are interested in is how we utilize the money that we got in the last biennium. These are 3 dams that we're utilizing those funds for, and we appreciate that because these are dams that need attention in the not too distant future. One of them is Willisburg Lake over in Washington County, and the dam itself actually serves as the structure for Highway 555. Willisburg Lake impounds Lick Creek. It's about a 126-acre reservoir, and it's also the source of raw drinking water for the surrounding area, so it's important for that purpose too. There are concerns with the hydraulic capacity of the dam and the downslope on the toe of the dam, on the downflow side of the dam is unstable. And with every passing day, week, or month, it becomes more so. So we are planning, we've got a design, we're almost through the design process, and what we're planning to do in that particular case is, because it's a raw water source, we'll probably have to build what's called a coffer-dam. A coffer-dam is where you dry stuff out so you can get in and work on the face of the dam. For long-term security, we're going to need to put in a flood wall and probably an auxiliary spillway, to address the potential hydraulic capacity issues, so you can sort of like a relief valve if the water gets up too high. And we're going to have to replace the raw water lines. One of the things that's worth pointing out on this particular slide is under project status. And the best way that I understand it and explain it is, as you take an action on a dam, you follow the procurement process in state code. And the procurement process, the type of contracts that are used for these dams are what we call design, bid, build. So in other words, you have to procure a design engineer. That design engineer will complete a design which we'll review before it's finalized. Then that design will go out for a bid for a construction contractor. And once those construction contract bids are in, then there's a process for choosing the winning bid. And then you begin the actual construction process at some point. It's a fairly, by its nature, it's a little bit of a lengthy process, but I think it's necessary to make sure that we're expending public money in such a way that we can all say is appropriate way to handle public dollars. One of the things that we do and really take an effort to do is because the way design, bid, build contracts work, if you're the design engineer, once you get a bid and construction contract, part of that design contractor's responsibility is to track the construction and make sure that the activities actually taking place consistent with what was in the design. And so one of the things that we do, and sometimes it's difficult because there aren't a whole lot of construction companies out there that do this for a living, but in our RFPs for design contractors, we sort of insist that there's language in there that it's a construction company that has some experience doing this. And one of the reasons we do that, it's not necessarily to exclude anybody, but what you might find is if you don't take that extra step, you may have a design contractor out there following a contractor around perhaps more than they normally would, and that runs your design cost up. And we want to keep our design cost at about 15% of what our total construction cost is. So we work very hard to make sure that happens because we don't want design cost creeping up into 25, 30% of what our actual construction cost is. So you'll see that with the money that was forwarded to the agency during that biennium, we've got $14 million set aside for construction of Willisburg Lake. That's a pretty significant project. A lot of work, building a cofferdam, relocating water lines. And we are just about ready to go out to bid on that, and we're targeting construction in the second quarter of this year. Because one of the things you have to, when you're doing this kind of work, is you got to hit those construction seasons. Once you hit outside of those, at some point in time, it may cause you to not be active enough, and you end up losing money and spending money that you don't need to. So sometimes you got to wait and hit it at the right time. Also on Big Bone Lick State Park Dam, we're going to decommission that dam. We are in the design process right now. That's a particular dam that in the past we've had to spend some of our assets through our emergency response team every now and then going up there when we'd have heavy rain to deploy pumps, high volume pumps, 4 and 6 inch pumps to keep the level down in the lake so that it won't overtop. I mean, that's at the point where rehabilitating it, rebuilding it just doesn't make economic sense. So we're intending to go down the decommissioning route there. And then Clements Lake Dam, which is up at Morehead State University, I'm familiar with it. I graduated there a long time ago. But if you've ever been on campus, Clements Lake Dam it's sort of like a righteous frown. It's sort of looking down at the campus there. It's a great place to go sledding. It's fun on the way down, but the sudden stop's a problem. But it really, because of that, it really is a high hazard dam. And if it were to fail, it could cause fatalities for sure, because it sits right above the campus and it's a very tall dam. We are in the design phase now. We've set aside $2.2 million for design, and that one will carry over into the next biennium where we have made estimates on what the actual construction costs will be. And that's what I want to take up in the next slide, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. You'll see what we have on tap for 26 through 28, Clements Dam, Eagle Lake. We're going to target that for construction in the second quarter of 2027. That's going to be a pretty significant project because you're going to be doing that on the edge of a university campus. And so we're going to have to make provisions for moving equipment and trucks and such in and out. But we're requesting that it be about $13 million. We'll know more once we get the design and get bids on it. Marion County Sportsman's Dam, we are getting ready to, during this biennium, we will go into the design phase. It's a fairly small dam, but inundation mapping shows that if it fails, it could cause fatalities because there are people who live beneath the brow of the dam. Same thing with Chenoa Lake Creek and Cannon Creek Dam in Bell County. The Mud River down at Lake Malone, we plan to do a rehabilitation study there before we really decide what path we might need to take moving forward. And then we set aside 0.5 for routine repairs and maintenance on state-owned dams, which sometimes, depending on the condition of a dam, it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And so we've asked to set aside that money in case we need to do some of that interim work before we make a final decision on what needs to happen. So I think that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. I'd be glad to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions on this? Representative McPherson.
So I guess I'm a transportation guy by trade, and we do design build and do different things. Are these designs and bids in the history of this, or are you all pretty consistent with the accuracy of what your estimate is based on what the bid comes out, or what are you seeing with inflation, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip, as the old saying goes, and sometimes as you're going through that process, some of your initial cost estimates may not end up being what the actual cost might be because of rising costs and so on and so forth. We've seen that. We saw that at Bullock Pen, which was a major project we did up in Grant County. There are times when we get that cost back. We may take another look at our design just to make sure that that's exactly what we think we need to do. But costs don't seem to be going down in this particular case, and the availability of construction companies that are familiar with this. So for the most part, we stay within 10%, I believe, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out, especially for Eagle Lake. We've got an estimate, but Eagle Lake's going to be a major project. It's a rehabilitation project, but it's like I said, you're working on the edge of a university campus. There have to be a lot of other things considered when you're working there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So are these estimates, are they pretty current? You think
They are.
These are the most current
They are.
estimates you guys?
That's our best engineering estimate at this time,
Okay. All right.
based
Thank
on
you.
our experience. Yes, sir. You're welcome,
Okay.
sir.
No, thank you. I mean, that's kind of what, just want to look at the most current that we've got. So.
Yes, sir. This is
Thank
it.
you.
Representative Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative McPherson asked some of the questions I was going to get to, but in your all's process, obviously there was money authorized last budget session for these projects, and you've got the design bid build process, and it looks like on 3 of them, or on 2 of them, you're in design. 1 you've actually gone to bid. And so is that timeline, is that a normal timeline for turnaround on these type things?
Yes, sir. It's a fairly normal turnaround time, given that we also have the responsibility of inspecting a bunch of dams every year. And it's always an easy thing to say that we're stressed for staff, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the reality of it is we have a lot of different things to do, and sometimes there's a lot of conversations even during the design process. Just because we get a design from an engineer doesn't mean that it goes unquestioned. We'll negotiate those for cost and necessity. And in the bid process, there are times when you don't necessarily, may not even get a bid that's even within the ballpark of what you estimate. And it can be difficult, particularly to make sure that if you've got multiple bidders on a contract, that it's apples and apples. Sometimes you see a really low bid and you start to wonder, okay, can I do this cheaper, or do I have somebody who's going to change order me to death? And so all those things together, and the passing of construction seasons, it's a little bit of a drawn out process, but not by intent at all.
Right. Okay. And I guess my question goes to, it looks like there was $22.2 million authorized in the 24 cycle. And we've not even got to the point where we can, start awarding that and moving forward with those funds. And then we're also asking for additional dollars, for this current budget cycle that we're in, or the upcoming budget cycle.
Right.
And I mean, would it be best to put design dollars out there and hold off? That way we have a more accurate estimate of what the cost is going to be.
Well,
Have you thoughts on
the
that?
funds get allocated to the state-owned dam repair
Right.
pool. And the 22.2 million that we have allocated right now, we've already moved those funds into some of these projects. We've got to have all of the funds available before Finance Cabinet can put out a bid. So the way it flows right now does work for the program. It just takes a little while to get through a completion of the design bid build.
Okay.
Representative Bowling, I guess maybe your question is, if I understand it, is would it make more sense to ask for dollars just to do the design, and once that's completed,
Yep. Then
you
we
have
know
an
what we're
idea
dealing
what that's
with. We
gonna
have
cost,
the
then-
latest estimates and all that stuff, and then move forward with the, bidding and construction and that piece of it.
that could delay the process. a
Right, I
considerable
understand that.
amount. It could
I understand
certainly do that.
Yep. Okay.
Do you also want to talk about how the design, sometimes the design too, if you do it too far ahead before you're ready for the construction and have the funds to do the construction, it won't still hold up for the construction is what I'm getting at.
You mean the design?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And so, and just to add to that, so when was the design proposal put out for the Willisburg Lake Dam? When did that process start? Did it start in 24 and is just now getting ready to go into the bid phase? Did it start in 25? You know what I'm
I
asking?
understand, yes,
Did
sir.
it start in 23 even before? When did that design proposed request go out?
The recent one just, I think, was within the last year
For
for Willisburg.
Okay, so
Yes.
in the last year it went out, and then the bid will go out. The bid has went out. How long will it be before that bid comes back in? Well, I guess what I'm asking is what is the length of the design bid build process? What is that? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? I know in the road plan, and it may not be apples to apples, but in a road back home, it takes you know, it'll take them a year and a half, 2 years just to get the design finished on a road.
Right.
So in the road projects, sometimes we'll ask for, like Representative Boland was saying, just give us the design money because I know it's going to be 2 years before that's finished. And I guess that's back to his question, how long is that process and does it differ?
It's nothing like a 4-year process. I can answer that with
Okay.
absolute certainty. This is sort of similar to like some of the other programs we have in the department where you have a lot of potential, what I'll call liability, and you've got a pool of money, and you've got several projects going, and you're moving them along incrementally as you can
Right.
manage them and oversee them.
Right.
But I don't think 4 years. I would much more lean towards a 2-year process
Okay.
if there's no other complications.
Right.
And then you've got which is significant, you've got the construction seasons that jump in there too. Sometimes if you get a cost near the end of construction season, that's going to push you out to the next construction season.
Right,
Unless
I
you get out,
understand
you may lose money
Right.
slogging through the mud.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. You can proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to present on Kentucky's electric grid resilience program. We're happy to be here today to give you a status update of the program. This program is a formula award of federal money known as Section 40101D of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It's a formula award program that goes to states and tribes. It is a 5-year program. Currently, Kentucky has received funding for years 1 through 3 of the program. The Energy and Environment Cabinet is the designated agency for implementation of the electric grid resilience program. As per the formula award, as an eligible state who has received funds, we have the ability to subgrant our funding to eligible entities. In Kentucky's program, we have allocated the funds to distribution cooperatives and municipal electric utilities, as well as to state park-owned distribution electric grid facilities. Years 1 through 3, as I mentioned earlier, we have already received that funding. That funding has been allocated to state park facilities as well as municipal electric utilities. Years 4 and 5 of the funding has not been received. That would have been allocated to the distribution electric cooperatives as well as the remaining municipal electric utilities. Before any project selected under the Grid Resilience Program can move into contracting and construction, the U.S. Department of Energy has to approve the project implementation plan, and all projects have to comply with federal and state requirements. With years 1 through 3 of funding, we have selected the following projects for our state parks. The 2 most in need, which has served as sheltering locations in the past, are Ken Lake State Park as well as Kentucky Dam Village. We have an interagency agreement with Department of Parks on this project. They are then working with Western Kentucky Rural Electric Cooperative on upgrades to the state-owned distribution electric infrastructure. We have a set number of parks in the state where the state actually is a distribution system operator. The 2 we're working on are examples of those projects. Eligible activities that we're funding for state parks under this funding: replacing wires, poles, upgrading conductors and transformers, vegetation management, relocation and undergrounding in some instances, given the design of the infrastructure upgrades. For the municipal electric projects on years 1 through 3, this was a competitive solicitation to all of the municipal electric utilities in the state. We were oversubscribed from the need, but we selected Owensboro, Princeton, Williamstown, and Hopkinsville. Owensboro was selected because they have a transmission tower there on the river that is due to flooding and an inundation. The transmission tower is risking threat of collapse into the river, and that would obviously affect the service to the city of Owensboro. Princeton, due to historic outages due to natural disasters in the area, they are using our funding to upgrade their residential meterings as well as pole replacement, infrastructure upgrades such as conductors and transformers, but more importantly, upgrades to their outage management system. This is particularly important to our work when we do have to respond. Our agency responds to electric outages alongside Kentucky Emergency Management. When we do have outages, it's essential that we have electric utilities that have an outage management system so that we can understand the magnitude of the outages as well as enhance the utility's ability to respond quickly and accurately detect outages. Princeton is upgrading that system. Williamstown, they are focusing on a specific circuit there that is has been of a sufficient age that it's deteriorating. They're looking at distribution poles, conductor upgrades, as well as other hardening measures against weather events. Hopkinsville is very similar to Princeton in what they've requested from us in the use of the funding. They are actually implementing a new outage management system. They did not have an outage management system before, which limited our ability to have situational awareness. And they are replacing residential meters so that they can integrate with the outage management system. Our progress to date, all of our projects are under contract and are entering in the subcontracting construction phases. Department of Parks is currently in negotiations and finalizing the agreement with Western Kentucky RECC, Rural Electric Cooperative. West Kentucky RECC is the service provider to the main meter in those two parks, and they were selected as the entity who will be doing the service upgrades to the distribution system in the parks. And we're waiting on finalization of that work order between Parks and Western Kentucky Rural Electric Cooperative. The city of Owensboro, Princeton, Williamstown, and Hopkinsville are all under contract. They are beginning their procurement of their meters, poles, supplies, transformers, conductors, etc. We do expect that those muni projects will go into construction Q1 of 2026. We do expect them to be completed by the end of, if not sooner, by the end of 2026. As part of this program, there is a state match on any federal funding received that is allocated to the actual project itself, and then any federal funds awarded to the subrecipient, but must also show a cost match on any federal funds that are sub-awarded. That's our status to date. We're ongoing. We're very optimistic that this will reduce the amount of outages and improve the performance of the electric distribution system in these areas. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Representative McPherson.
Yes, so two at the top, the Ken Lake and Kentucky Dam Village. We know, assume these are the areas that, again, the state parks have been over the past 40, 50 years. They've been maintaining their own system.
That's correct.
And are these upgrades going to be enough that, and I think it's our intention, and once we get these upgraded, they will then possibly be in agreement to give them to the other, to give them away, in other words, to get, to get them off our shoulders, in a
Yes,
sense.
you're correct. The funding allocated for Ken Lake State Park and Kentucky Dam Village, that allocation will be enough to bring the system up to safety code, improve the service so that they would be in a position so that West Kentucky RECC could then take over the maintenance of the distribution system without putting that cost onto their other ratepayers.
Correct.
So this is a good estimate of bringing those facilities up to code and improving them to the point that West Kentucky RECC would feel comfortable then coming in to maintain that system.
It's familiar. So again, just to kind of circle back and reiterate, we have talked to the parks people a time or two concerning this for the last 2 or 3 years. How close do you think they are to signing these agreements?
Well, these agreements with Ken Lake and Kentucky Dam Village are imminent. We've got some minor changes that West Kentucky RECC has requested of state parks. I fully expect that construction can begin in the first quarter at those parks. As far as the other remaining parks in the state, I would encourage you to ask parks this question, but we have not seen any engineering design work done to replicate what we've done at these 2 parks yet on the electric distribution system. I believe in 2023, the Kentucky Association of Electric Cooperatives presented information, and they estimated in the state we have 11 locations. As far as I know right now, these are the only 2 that are into construction on the electric distribution system. This is a good model of the processes it would take in order to replicate this at the remaining park locations.
Yeah. I think it is our intention to get them to the proper people so they can properly maintain them.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Representative Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my clarification, were the Ken Lake State Park and the Kentucky Dam Village State Park, did they have a separate appropriation, or was that through the Grid Resiliency Program?
Well, I'm not an employee of parks. I do believe there has been separate appropriations for parks for utility upgrades. As far as the status of that would be a question for parks.
Okay. I guess I'm wanting clarification because it looks to me, because I remember the discussion and I've tried to find it in the bill and I've had a little bit of issue, but it seems like I remember it was a separate appropriation and then it looks like it's being funded through a different program now.
Again, from what I recall from state parks, there was an appropriation for them to address utility upgrades at multiple park locations. In order to maximize that appropriation, we said we would utilize some of our funding so that they could utilize, we're saving them $10 million
Yeah.
by coming in and helping them at these 2 park locations with federal funding so that the rest of their allocation can go to other projects.
Okay. But it's the parks that have to negotiate the contracts and all of that with.
Yes. So the way our process works, we have an interagency agreement with parks. Parks in our process, similar to Commissioner Hatton, Parks initiates an engineering assessment with the serving electric utility. That engineering assessment will estimate the cost as well as what would be the design plan for the infrastructure upgrades. We took that, submitted it as part of our project plan to DOE because we had to receive approval on the project plan. It was approved, and then they're now negotiating the construction work orders consistent with that engineering assessment.
Okay. When did, just for, once again, for my clarification, when did you all start, since it's went through your all's program, when did that begin? Because I think like it's been 18 months, and I'm just kind of curious, like what,
So we
does
start-
it usually take this long, or?
We did have some significant delays with getting our relationship and communications with Parks established, as well as getting an understanding with the status of the system there at Parks. I will say the Parks projects have taken longer to implement than the munis. The muni projects have gone extremely quickly. We went to call for applications, selection, contracting fairly quickly. Parks has been a lengthy delay process.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. So on those two projects, just from my mind,
Yes.
are we waiting on Parks to sign off on these projects to be completed?
Right now,
Okay.
we're waiting on them to finalize the request from West Kentucky Rural Electric Cooperative.
Okay. So we're waiting on them to do the changes at the
Yes,
electric
that
company.
the
Okay.
cooperative is requesting.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, ladies, for being here today and presenting before our committee. It's been helpful. We appreciate it very much. We will meet again next week at 12 o'clock. Unless we may do some changes because this interferes with the meeting that Representative McPherson has at the same time. So we may have to do some time changes, but we'll let you know. But we'll adjourn until next Wednesday, January 21st. Thank you.